What's up, Bulldogs? All right, I thought I would talk about today, kind of the mission, and it's hard to exactly say what this is because I'm still in a little bit of a limbo trying to figure out a few things with Bulldog Mindset. But this is more of these ideas that I want to run by you. I want to tell you what's going on with me and see what you guys think about this. Now, I know that the crowd is not quite as large since I switched the channels here, but I know that a lot of you guys that are here are dedicated. You want to hear what I have to say, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you guys jumping on here, liking the videos, leaving comments, and all that. And and I appreciate you sticking with me through this evolution. There's been so many evolutions of John Sonmez of Bulldog Mindset, from Simple Programmer and on. And yeah, this one's been kind of the hardest one because it still feels like I'm a little bit lost here. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I want to talk about is sort of the direction. And one of the things that I got, I think, when I was doing this podcast with Nikhil, Captain Sinbad, and we were talking about this, is the three trials of a man, right? The three insecurities all men must face. And I've done a lot of video topics on this, but just to recap this real quick, the first one is physical violence or your mortality, right? Facing, getting into the arena, getting into the boxing ring, getting hit in the face, right? We've talked about this in various ways on this channel throughout the years, throughout the decade. And that's a fear that men have to face. If you don't face that fear as a man, you're not going to feel like a man. And so there's that, right? And then there's the second one, which is the financial freedom aspect of it, or really being able to make your own money, being a self-made man. And I would say this is not getting a paycheck, because anyone can get a paycheck. Getting a paycheck is like being a lion being fed in a cage. Yeah, you're still a lion. Yeah, you're still getting fed. But, and yeah, I know you're working for the job, and I know you can improve your skills to get a job. And to some degree, that makes you feel good. But what makes you really, really feel good and feel like you are the man is when you're the one hiring people, when you're the one making the money, when it's totally an entrepreneurial enterprise and you've created this. You're not just working in someone else's factory, so to speak. So, and I know that might insult some of you guys, but hey, it's what it is. I mean, and again, maybe it's not your insecurity. Maybe you're not insecure about that at all. And if that's the case, that's fine, right? The idea of all of this is to help you to go down this path so you don't have these insecurities, these fears. And the third one, I never really came up with a great way to describe this, but I said to cold approach a woman, to be able to procure a woman from cold approach. And what this means is to be able to face your fear of being rejected by women, but going out there and facing sexual rejection, going out there and talking to a woman that you don't know and being able to actually have success with her. And I think this one's an important one. I think this maybe is the most important one that plagues men today, because it's built into us. It's this genetic, reproductive, biological desire and insecurity that we have to overcome. That can we go out there and meet a woman and talk to her and charm her into the bedroom, right? That, just to put it bluntly, right? And it doesn't mean that your life has to revolve around any of these things, but these are the three trials of man. These are the three insecurities that all men must face. And the reason why I'm saying this in this video is because that's the thing when I think about it, right? Because sometimes I get lost here and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm trying to help you do. I'm trying to help you to overcome these three things so that you can be the man that you want to be, right? So you can step up and be that masculine man. And then by doing those three things, I think then that opens up the way for you to be the man that you need to be as a father, as a husband, in a relationship, and even on your own, just independently, to feel like you are the man. And I know that for me, until I had accomplished those things or conquered those things, I didn't feel like the man, right? And that that was a big shift for me. That was a big change. And so I really want to create content. I really want to facilitate you guys growing to that, growing through those things, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So, but I'm still growing in a way too, right? That was the other thing that came out on this podcast too, was this idea that I'm sort of in this shaman phase, like where if I were alive back in the day, in the tribal days, I would be a shaman. That's what I would be. I would be like that warrior shaman, World of Warcraft, something to that degree, because there's a spiritual aspect that underlies all of these things, right? And that's really where I'd like to take you guys, and it's sort of the phase that I'm in as well, because I've conquered those things, and it's weird because it feels weird and empty to have conquered those things, right? And it's not to say that I've fully conquered them, because there's always growth and development in those areas, but to a degree, I've conquered them to enough that there's not a significant motivation in any of those areas to pull me forward. And so it's hard. It's hard to find that motivation. It's hard to find that drive. And I do think that it does come back to this idea of growth, right? I keep coming back to this idea that I want to find something and do something that I can feel the growth in. And it doesn't even so much matter what it is, right? And like I said, I do think that Bulldog Mindset is those three things. That's what it really is. And so as I'm making these new videos, I'm going to try to think about those things and think about how can I help you in each one of those areas and conquer the problems that you're going to face in each one of those things. And really, I think the core of it comes down to that mindset, right? What is masculinity? How do we develop this? How do we face our fears, right? It's by becoming stronger, right? And it's not just in the gym, it's becoming stronger as a human being, as a person. It's the emotional mastery, the Stoic philosophy. It's all of these things that are combined in order to build that better man, right? As I've been thinking about this too, I've been thinking about a direction, like what is the direction that I want to really take things in? And there's two aspects to this, I think, at this point, right? So one of them is what I'm doing with the Bulldog Mindset membership, which that I just rebooted. I haven't officially announced it yet. I mean, by the time this video comes out, maybe I'll have sent out some emails. But you can go in there right now if you're a member, and you can see that I have reset up the lessons and the way that it's configured. There's an AI version of me in there that you can talk to, and it's not to be like a simulation of me. That's not what it's designed to. It's just a smart catalog of all of my content that it knows the answers from everything I've made from the last 10 years, like 3,000 videos, something like that. So that's in there. And then I'm going to do some other things. We've added a community to the Kajabi part of things, so you can jump in there. If you're not a member already, now's a great time to check it out and get in there, because I'm in there now more. I really want to be active in that community. So that's the first thing is the Bulldog Mindset. And then and then the idea of that, like why the Bulldog Mindset, why the membership, right? It's to give you all the tools in order to grow, right? In order to grow in these areas, because it's broken into mindset, fitness, dating, or social, basically, and money, right? And so there's lessons in there. There's hundreds. There's 200 lessons basically in there that are divided in those 4 areas, where I teach you specific concepts that I've learned along this way, so that you can ultimately, I think, if you progress through all of that, and you can find the things that are useful to you at that time, that you will be able to conquer those 3 insecurities, those 3 fears, the 3 trials of man, as I put it. So, so that's there for you, right? And to have the community, and the community is something that I really wanted to build up there. So that's kind of one element of what's going on here. And then what I'd like to do with that is build a mentoring program where I take maybe 20 guys at a time, and I walk you through in 12 weeks this whole process of conquering these 3 things, dividing it up maybe into 3 weeks at a time, or I guess 4 weeks at a time, or however we divide. I have to come up with a curriculum for that, and I walk you through this personally. Like we face these things. Maybe we have some kind of in-person element to this, maybe at the end, or maybe once a year for everyone who's graduated from the classes, something like that. That's really, really effective at accelerating through this. But the Bulldog Mindset is meant to be the stepping stone, like the membership, so that you join that, you go through that stuff, you work on that stuff on your own, and then eventually, if you want to work with me, we go through this process. The other thing that I've been thinking about, again, this other calling is, I've been doing this podcast with my wife, this Better Than Perfect podcast, and a lot of people are upset by this. They're like, Bulldog Mindset's gone. She's got him now, and this is the end of Bulldog Mindset. I don't really appreciate those comments. I get it, though. I get the perspective of it, because, man, I was out there showing you guys how to pick up chicks and all this stuff. But you have to understand that at the time when I was doing that, I was cheating on my wife, right? At the time, my ex-wife. So now, again, I say that not to make light of it, and not to even say that what I was showing you and teaching you was necessarily bad, or that it wasn't necessary for my own growth, even though I handled it in the wrong way, right? I could have been doing that. I could have been divorced and doing that independently, so I can fully acknowledge my own mistakes. but it was the biggest period of my growth in time. And so I understand the nostalgia of that bulldog mindset period of time because I have it as well, right? However, things must change, and we must grow, and we must go beyond that. And that's still not gone, right? There's still that element. I still, the things learned from that and things that I've taught you guys, I don't, that's not changed, right? That's still there. And I still think it's valuable. And I still think that you should go out there and learn how to pick up girls. And, and I'm happy to teach you the things that I can about that thing. It's just not the phase of my life that I'm in right now. So even though I can teach you, I can't join you. So, you can take that for what it is. But I'm happy to help you to do that, because I think that was a big stepping stone. It's something that you do need to conquer in your life, as that third trial of man, of being able to pick up women. And when I did that, when I learned how to do that, even though, like I said, I was doing it in the wrong way, and I'm being fully transparent about this stuff, guys, because, I know a lot of people might be even off put by me saying this stuff, but this is the honest truth, right? This is what I went through. This is my life, right? I've shared it with you guys publicly for over 10 years. Yes, I did hide some things when I was doing what I wasn't supposed to be doing, but I was still authentically giving you the information. I was just holding back some of that information, honestly, because, hey, I was blowing my own life up in a way, but I was also transforming in a way. So I guess what I'm saying is that, that stuff is still valuable, right? And that's still something that you should learn. You should still learn that skill. And when I had gone through that myself, it did transform me in many, many ways, right? It did. I would say it made me finally feel like a real man, because I could go out and do that. And so you might think that's shallow, or that's silly, or that's chasing external validation. And I get the pieces of that are, but also it is knowing that you are the man, that you can do this. So that brings us kind of to the second part of this, which is, what else is going on, or like what else am I thinking for Bulldog Mindset, which is a podcast, right, that I'm doing with my wife. So that's a big thing. And what I realized with this, and I'll try to put this in terms that make sense here, is that one of the biggest gifts that I could give you guys, or give to the world, honestly, is to teach men to be, I don't want to say something that's going to sound really arrogant, but to be more like me, in the sense that, how can I put this? In a relationship, in treating women, in being the kind of man that a woman would really value and want, right? So a man that is strong and capable and confident and has a backbone and understands boundaries, has developed himself to a very high degree, right? Who has success, who has created success in his life, but at the same time is kind and understanding and empathetic to a woman, and is able to lead her and teach her and grow with her, right? A man that is willing to take care, to protect and provide for a woman, right? And I do think that this is extremely valuable, and I think this is something that is extremely lacking in society today. And I think if I were to say, like, what is the greatest value that I could give to society, it would be to create more men like that, right? And part of that is the Bulldog Mindset, right? Because the Bulldog Mindset is sort of the training ground for being this. But then I think there's something else. And I'm thinking about putting together, and we'll see, leave a comment down below if you're interested in this. But essentially relationship coaching for men, right? Whether you're, most likely if you're in one, how to become that, how to gain the respect of your wife, how to gain the sexual desire of your wife, how to reclaim your masculinity in a relationship. And if you're not in one, how to enter a relationship successfully so that you don't make some of the mistakes that I made when I was younger, the mistakes that I see guys making that I'm coaching all the time. And you can really enter into a relationship that brings you a great deal of satisfaction, that you are the kind of man that a woman would really respect and admire and want to be with, and have an extreme amount of love for you, that she would never leave you, she would never cheat on you, she'd never do any of these things. And I know a lot of you guys are jaded from a lot of the content that you've heard on the internet about marriage and relationships and women. And the best thing I can tell you about all this stuff is that it comes down to you. Like the failing is not of women, and the failing is not even of society, but it is in the sense that if you look at it from a patriarchal viewpoint, that men had control of society, and what did they do with it? Right? They did not. They did not foster it in the way that it should have went. Right? And so the blame is really squarely on men. Right. And again, it's not on you specifically as a man. And when I say it's on men, don't be offended in the fact that you are biologically a male. Right. That doesn't mean that you're responsible just in the same way that you're not responsible for the sins of your fathers. Right. That some people who are social justice warriors try to revisit upon you. Right. And try to say you have privilege. But in a way, you still are responsible for today and what you're doing in your life and for the people that you affect in your life. And so my point in all this is to say this, is that if you want to change society, if you want to make the world a better place, it begins with creating strong men, right? And not just strong men in the sense that they're physically strong and can conquer things and have success, but strong men that can lead women, that will stand up and fight the battles that need to be fought, that can raise children, that can do the things that are going to benefit society, because there's a huge lacking of this, right? And I see this as I make the content with this Better Than Perfect podcast, and people get so upset about this content, especially when I talk about things. And I've talked about this multiple times on this channel, but I'll keep on beating this dead horse about being financially responsible, right? I did this video that went viral on TikTok, or the clip from this, and I was talking about how if you can't afford a woman, then you shouldn't have one, and that a man should be able to provide financially for a woman and his family. This is something that used to be the norm, and now people say, "Oh, well, it's too expensive now." That's bullshit, man. It's bullshit. I'm not getting behind that. That's bullshit. The idea is that you should be the man, and you should step up and be able to have that authority as the man, because you've built yourself in these ways. And so that's the thing that I think is the most value that I could give, is honestly to create men like that, right? To help. Because the other thing is, when you think about it, women are sort of in this position where there's not a lot of good men. There's really not. There's a lot of weak, kind men, I would say, and that's what a lot of men complain about it, and a lot of you guys might fall into that category, right? Not to pick on you, but you might be a weak, kind man, and then women overlook you, and you say, when they say there's no good men, you're like, they're here, right here, but you're too kind, and you're not strong enough, right? So that's the problem. That's what the problem is that it's one thing to be kind and weak. That's easy. It's hard to be kind and strong, right? Jordan Peterson talked about this a lot, about the idea that a man should be capable of violence, and that there's no real valor, or you don't get any credit by not being violent when you're weak or you're a coward. But when you are capable of great violence, when you are strong, when you have power, and then you yield that power, that is the mark of a great man. Right. And I don't think he said it exactly in those terms, but I think you can understand that. And so I want to teach you how to become great men that women admire and respect, and to to not worry about society and worry about other people and all these things that are going on, because it's not as bleak as what it seems. Right. But the biggest thing is that, yeah, there's weak men out there, and that's the majority of it. And the plight of women, like I said, is that they can't find a good man. They can't find a guy. As this clip went viral on TikTok, and literally thousands of women commented on this, like, where can I find a man like that? I've never seen a man like that. I was kind of sad, and I was like, is this really the case? Is this like, I'm giving this advice, and I'm telling women that, you got to find a man like this, but there is not one. There's hardly any, and so that's kind of sad, right? And so it's like, what are you supposed to tell people like that, right? The only thing I can say is, like, I'm building an army, right? I'm helping men to become these men, and so there'll be more of them, hopefully, in the future, right? So it is sad. It is interesting, just the position that we're in, and there's a lot of men today that will never never gain the attraction of a woman, right? That's just how it's going to be. Like I can see it. I don't want you to be one of those guys. I want you to be one of the superior men, and I want you to realize that if you become one of these men, that you will have women fighting over you, literally. Right. Again, I'm not trying to sell you some kind of sleazy dating program here. I'm just telling you, right? Again, and like I said, at some point, I'm going to put together this relationship thing, and I'll involve my wife in this as well because she's got a female perspective on some of these things. And the other thing that I think is interesting about this podcast is that you can see how a woman will submit to you and and follow your lead and publicly state that you are an authority in her life if you are this kind of man, because that's also part of the reason some people had commented like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't put your wife on social media. I've always heard that's a bad thing for various reasons, blah blah blah. And I thought about that and I was like, yeah, I mean, I generally agree with that advice. I think that's generally true, but in this case, I think it's pretty cool to see, as we do this podcast, how much Nicole, my wife, respects me and how she, she has her own opinion, and that's fine. But ultimately, she defers to my authority. She publicly talks about that, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's something that people need to see because they can see that how it should be, right? How leadership really looks like. As a man in a relationship. So I think this has gone on a little bit long enough. This has been sort of a sort of a rant, just sort of my own thoughts on this. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys find these kind of videos useful or not, but I guess at this point it doesn't really matter because, like I said, I started the new channel. There's not, I don't really have a big stake in this here. There's nothing really on the line here. Although you might say that there's everything on the line because to some degree, sometimes I feel like Bulldog Mindset is completely collapsing, and that's kind of a scary thought. But I don't know, like what can I do besides, do what I feel called to do, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.